Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, Indiana is on track for a record economic development year. Are more tolls in our future? Purdue Krannert's Business Opportunity Program turns 50, and Indiana College receives a game-changing gift. The YMCA is looking to improve the health of veterans. Our Culture Matters segment spotlights 7 corners, and a panel of insiders takes on the week's top stories. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. With more than a month left to go, Governor Eric Holcomb says Indiana is on its way to a record economic development year. The Indiana Economic Development Corporation says, so far this year, the state has secured 270 commitments from businesses planning to create nearly 29,000 jobs. Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger joined Inside Indiana Business Television host Gary Dick to discuss what's behind the growth and whether it will continue.
A lot to talk about here. We'll get to the trade trip in a moment, but these numbers that were released this week, big numbers. In your view, what's driving these jobs deals?
Well, it's a record year, and what's really good about these numbers is we're getting more jobs, more capital investment, 27% higher wages on less projects with less incentives. So it's driving government. It's ending up being very efficient in terms of government. What's driving it is the diversity of our economy and the fact that Indiana is such a pro-business state. We have low taxes, low regulations. We're fiscally responsible. AAA credit rating, $1.8 billion in the bank, and our geographical location is perfect. Crossroads of America.
Yep. Let's talk about some of these areas. You talk about diversification. Manufacturing continues, advanced manufacturing to be that real driver of the economy. $5 billion in investment. These are, again, planned, committed investments. 10,000 jobs. So advanced manufacturing is still strong.
It's strong. Indiana has the highest concentration manufacturing in the country. It's 30% of our GDP. 1 in every 5 people goes to work at one of our advanced manufacturing facilities here in our state. But we have to be on top of this. As the governor says, we are closer to 2050 than we are to 1950. And so the jobs of tomorrow, we want to make sure that we're number 1 in advanced manufacturing in 2020 and in 2030 and 2040, and not just here today in 2017.
Yeah, technology getting a lot of attention, and again, a big part of these numbers. Big name companies like Infosys, Indian-based technology company coming here, so technology growing in the state.
Well, success breeds success, and I think that what they're telling us is we have the great universities and colleges that are producing the types of graduates they want. We have the ecosystem that is building here. Again, our location with the Internet of Things, they're by their customer base, and they love the fact that we have a low cost of living here, so they're able to give their employees a great place to live, work, play, and stay.
Yeah, you are just back from a trade trip to India. We're seeing some pictures on the screen there. Met with officials from Infosys and some other big name companies. The importance of trips like that. International companies represented 34 commitments out of this year's list, $1 billion in potential future investment.
It's huge. There's nothing like face-to-face contact, and our batting average goes really up when we're face-to-face. There's nothing like it. And it is a day and age of the internet and all that, but there's nothing like going over and making sure you're face-to-face, that you show them that you're willing to go that far. That was just a 15.5-hour flight to tell them they're important and to discuss the business with them. And I've been on 14 international missions this year in 11 countries, and we've had very tangible, positive results on every single trip we go on. So we've learned that it is well worth the commitment of time and energy.
Yeah, Axis Caddis, I should mention, we saw some video there. Indian company going to put a North American headquarters here in Indiana. That announcement on the location coming up, I guess, in a few weeks.
It is. That should be coming up the week of the 4th of December. Yep. They're exploring it right now, but we're really excited about them. They're a very, very high-level engineering firm, mechanical, electrical engineering.
We'll have about 30 seconds, but I know the agenda, the next level agenda, a number of things related to business, but a big focus is going to be on workforce.
That's right. Our workforce is our number 1 challenge right now. With our low unemployment rate, we have a workforce challenge. We have a new Secretary of Career and Talent Attraction, Blair Milo. We're excited about that. The governor's announcement of the Workforce Board, which will involve Teresa Lubbers, our Superintendent of Public Instruction, Blair, and a couple others, I think is exciting. We not only have to skill up our workforce, but we need to retain and recruit talent, and that's going to be our focus.
So talent, so workforce, and then as adjacent to that, talent. Got to keep talent attractive.
Yeah.
All right, Jim Schellinger, Indiana Secretary of Commerce. Thanks for joining us. I know you're on a whirlwind statewide trip now, coming back from India, but thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Gary.
Still to come, a Purdue program supporting minority business students hits a major milestone, and Marian University lands a major donation. But first, what would you think of more tolling? The Indiana Department of Transportation has released a feasibility study focusing on the projected impact of opening up major Indiana interstates for tolling. INDOT says the study aims to find funding options to offset an anticipated decrease in revenue from the fuel tax. Indiana Chamber of Commerce President Kevin Brenniger joined IIB to weigh in.
A lot of people talk about tolling. Is it accurate to say that tolling is a foregone conclusion? It's going to happen?
Not a foregone conclusion. The General Assembly did put language in the Transportation Infrastructure Bill that it passed this year that gives the authority to the governor to explore tolling and to petition the U.S. Department of Transportation for the permission and opportunity to toll certain roads. And what we need to recognize is that the funding package that passed this year was really for maintenance. 40% of that money goes to local government and to finish some projects that were started. But when you talk about adding lane miles, going from 4 lanes to 6 lanes on major interstates all across the state, you're talking about sums of money that are beyond INDOT's current budget. And so tolling is the most realistic way to make those needed improvements.
And you mentioned that legislation generating ultimately about $1.2 billion a year, right? So that's a big number. You say tolling would likely be needed, perhaps,
above and beyond that,
to fill the gap. Let's talk about a feasibility study was just released by the Indiana Department of Transportation. Looked at a number of things, potential revenues coming in from tolling, also where it might make sense to do it. You know, talking about making I-65 and I-70 a minimum of 6 lanes. Talk about the feasibility study.
Well, that's really the first step in this process. I mean, you have to know what revenues could be generated based on traffic counts. One of the positive things about looking at this is that they estimate that some 40% of any tolling revenue that would be generated would come from vehicles from out of state. So they would be paying to help improve our roads. But it really is the wave of the future. If you've been across the Ohio River bridges, you know that you don't have to slow down and fumble in your pocket for change to pay the toll. It's done on an electronic camera system. You just breeze right through, and then the toll bill comes to your home, and you can pay that when you pay your monthly bills.
Yep. Next steps. This is, as you mentioned earlier, it's not going to happen overnight. If it does happen, this is a process.
Yeah, this is a process that will take several years. The General Assembly did give the governor the authority to unilaterally decide whether to pursue tolling, and where to pursue it. And they will look at where the greatest need is and what revenue is likely to be generated from that segment of highway, and then determine what's the best approach and how to proceed.
Before we leave, got to get your comment. Great night this week, as always, the Indiana Chamber annual dinner. Great awards handed out. Peyton Manning, keynote speaker at that event. 2,000 people, a huge crowd at the convention center. There's Tom Easterday from Subaru. He was the business leader of the year. Goshen won the community of the year. Scott McCorkle, visionary leader of the year. Ed Soliday, government leader. Your take.
Wonderful evening, record crowd by a 500-person jump. We had to do it in one of the exhibit halls, and the governor gave some nice remarks and gave me a recognition that was.
You got a Sagamore of the Wabash.
I did for my 25 years at the Indiana Chamber, which happens today as we're sitting here in the studio. And it was a blessed evening and just a wonderful event.
Well, congratulations, a richly deserved honor, Kevin. And as always, thanks for coming in. We look forward to seeing you soon.
My pleasure, Gary. Always great to visit with you.
All right.
Coming up on the podcast, a game-changing gift for Marian University, and the YMCA puts a spotlight on veteran health. But now, the coming year marks the 50th anniversary of Purdue's Krannert Business Opportunity Program. It was one of the first programs of its kind in the country to help recruit minority students into a business school. Decades later, it continues to grow, and Krannert School of Management Dean David Hummels joined us for our weekly Eye on Education segment.
Diversity is talked about everywhere all the time now, not a new topic. But to think that the Krannert School started this program, the Business Opportunity Program, really focused on diversity, 50 years really makes a statement.
Well, you know, it was directly after Martin Luther King's death that we started the program, realized that we needed to do something. And that program has, for 50 years now, brought to campus some very talented students who might not otherwise have a chance at a first-class business education. They have then gone on to do amazing things in the world. Some of the leading entrepreneurs in the country have come out of that program, and it continues to attract to Krannert and to Purdue some leading companies who want to recruit from that student pool.
Yeah, the impact, I'm sure, would be widespread. As I talk to people about diversity, whether it's in the corporate world, academia, or whatever it might be, they talk about being intentional about it and really having a focus.
Well, you know, I think you have to start off by figuring out, how do I attract students who can succeed? And then while they're on campus, putting a program around them that will help them reach their potential, and then prepare them for the workforce so that the companies who come to recruit from us know that they're going to get top-notch talent.
And I'm sure there's got to be many benefits, among them that recruiting piece, as the corporate world looks at the kind of talent coming out of Purdue.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. A friend of mine is a CFO at Microsoft, and reached out to me by phone a year ago, and he said, I don't know what you guys are doing at Krannert, but we hired 20 students into our finance rotation nationwide. 4 of them came from Krannert. 3 came out of the Business Opportunity Program.
Interesting. You talk about things going on at the Krannert School in West Lafayette, the Export Indiana Fellowship Program. Export, a lot more attention being placed on exports, in particular here in Central Indiana, but I think statewide. Talk about this program and how the Krannert School is really integrating into it.
Yeah, so I think the notion is this. Smart business people realize that 95% of the world's population is outside of our borders, and if you want to grow your business, export markets are an important part of that, but where do you even start? You don't know the language, you don't know the regulations, and so on. And so what we do is we have a number of very talented students who come from those companies that you might want to expand into. So we pair an outstanding MBA student with an Indiana company in order to sort of help them get past the hurdles of language and regulations and so on. That helps those students to get learning experiences with the companies, helps those companies to grow internationally.
And I've got to assume that the small and mid-sized companies in particular would be fertile ground for this. The big companies know how to do it and have been doing it for
exactly. So if you're a Caterpillar or an Eli Lilly or someone like that, you've got operations all over the place. But if you're a small company that's got a world-beating idea, you need a pathway to international expansion, and that's what the program's for.
Data analytics, big data, those are the buzzwords these days. I know that's part of an evolving program and focus at Krannert.
It is. We think that the ability to use data will be a key competitive driver for almost any company. It doesn't matter if you're in retail or finance and insurance, manufacturing, agribusiness. You need people who understand how to use data to drive business decisions. So we really do 3 things. Every student coming out of our programs at Krannert, regardless of major, will have some talent. Second, we will find degree programs. We've built degree programs so people can go deeper and really help drive data to decisions for companies. And then finally, we have a very active consulting practice where we will take faculty-led student teams and provide them to companies who've got problems they need to solve.
All right, so a real focus, again, being very intentional on the data side as well.
Absolutely.
All right, David Hummels, the Dean of the Krannert School of Management at Purdue University. As always, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Still to come, new YMCA programs aim to improve veteran health, and we spotlight the culture of a caramel company. But first, Marian University has pushed past the halfway point of its $150 million capital campaign thanks to a gift from a Hoosier speaker manufacturer. The university says the $12 million donation will go toward building one of the best teachers' colleges in the country. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redman has the story.
The Educators College at Marian University has received a $12 million gift from Fred and Judy Klipsch. The college will be renamed the Fred S. Klipsch Educators College. The gift will also fund the Judy L. Klipsch Angel Educators Scholarship for underprivileged students who want to become teachers.
I've been involved in the education reform movement for over a decade. I have concern about every child, regardless of where they live or what their parents' income is, having access to a really good education. And I've been working hard for a long time trying to facilitate that in Indiana. And at this stage of my life, I sold my company in 2011, the Klipsch Speaker Company. As I think about where I want the resources I've accumulated to go, what Marion and Dan Elsner in particular are doing with their Educators College is really special. And therefore, it became obvious to me that this was a place that I would want my reputation and my name to be associated.
Klipsch tells me his $12 million gift to the university will make a difference in the long run, not just up front, benefiting aspiring teachers for years to come.
This is a game changer for us. I mean, Judy and Fred's commitment to forming this next generation of educational talent for our students. It's going to allow us to be one of the best developers of educational talent in the country. And first and foremost, starting with recruiting really talented students who want to become educators, particularly focusing on minority educators.
When I think the future of our community, the future students, especially from all backgrounds, to have great educators, a nationally prominent educators college here in this great city, and we'll be the envy of many great cities around the country because of what it'll mean for other people. So it's a gift to Marion University to be a gift to the community, and that's what's so great about it. And we're very thankful for the Klipsch's and what they're doing. And the Klipsch College will be nationally known for changing lives in our schools. And for that, I'm just glad to be a little part of it.
Mary Rachel Redman, Inside Indiana Business.
Later in the podcast, our Culture Matters segment takes a look at 7 corners, and our insiders take a look at this week's top stories. But now, many of the programs that the YMCA has introduced recently are geared toward improving the health of veterans. They include a diabetes prevention program, which becomes eligible for Medicare reimbursement starting in April, and adaptive sports clinics. Chelsea Winters with the YMCA of Greater Indianapolis joined health contributor Barb Lewis to talk about the efforts.
Every Veterans Day, the country takes stock on how those who served are doing once they return home. The YMCA of Greater Indianapolis has multiple programs focused on veterans' physical and emotional health. Joining me is the Senior Director of Community Health Initiatives, Chelsea Winters. It's good to have you on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So what sort of opportunities do you have for veterans?
Sure. So we have a variety of programs. We, first of all, offer 20% off of membership rates for veterans. We host a couple different things around job fairs and workforce readiness. And then this program, the YMCA's Diabetes Prevention Program, we have some funding from the Disabled Veterans National Foundation to cover the full cost of this year-long program for veterans.
Okay, we're going to focus mostly on health, but I'm just fascinated by the focus on reintegration. I mean, that's something you don't think that the Y would offer, and the Y would offer veterans, but you're doing that. Why?
Yeah, so the Y's mission is to really be there for all. So our mission is to serve our community, to help kind of work alongside communities in making them healthier, stronger for our kids, and really that social responsibility piece. And so we think it's really important for veterans to kind of be a part of that integrated community and help them with that re-entry to the workforce and into their communities.
Okay, so what has the response been from veterans? I mean, you know, are they using the programs? Are they using the facilities?
Yeah, so our like I said before, our YMCA's Diabetes Prevention Program has some funding specifically for veterans. Mm-hmm. We've been working with the Veterans Administration here in Indianapolis to find veterans who are at risk, refer them in, and then get them into a program at their local Y. And the response has been pretty great. We're doing really well in the grant and filling those numbers. And on the reverse side, really seeing some great outcomes as far as weight loss and increased physical activity, which is what we really know from the evidence helps reduce their rates of diabetes.
Okay, and so the diabetes program isn't just for veterans, but that's the one that has really been very successful and has really been the pilot program for now a national rollout. So tell us a little bit about how that happened and why you think it was so successful.
Yeah. So our history here in Indianapolis dates back to 2005. Our YMCA of Greater Indianapolis partnered with IU School of Medicine to actually do the translation research for this program, to see how this program could be delivered in a community setting with sort of lay community health workers. In 2010, the Centers for Disease Control picked up the program along with our national office, YUSA, and really started the national spread of this program. So it's really a Hoosier success story as far as the research goes, and really now seeing this national scaling of the program.
Okay, so how are you judging success with this, though?
Yeah, so the goals of the program are to reduce body weight by 5 to 7% and to increase physical activity to about 150 minutes a week, which is the recommended amounts for adults. And what all of those years of research showed is that participants who achieve those two goals are able to reduce their rates or risk of actually developing diabetes by about 58%. So participants who hit those two outcomes, which is what the class is focused on, we really see that reduced risk of actually progressing to a type 2 diagnosis.
Okay, so for veterans, PTSD, obviously, obesity, which goes into the diabetes program, and chronic pain are kind of the top three. So are those all being addressed in this program?
So this program specifically focuses on that physical health, right? Reducing weight and physical activity. But it's done with that extra social support. So each of the diabetes prevention program classes are done in groups of somewhere between 8 and 15 other participants who are also at risk for developing the disease. And so our facilitators are really trained at sort of meeting participants where they're at, helping to foster and provide those organic social connections amongst the group, which we know then support all sorts of healthy living options moving forward.
All right. Well, Chelsea Winters, thank you so much for being on the program.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
Still to come, our panel of insiders weighs in on the biggest stories of the week. But first, Carmel-based Seven Corners is an international travel insurance and specialty benefit management company. It was founded in 1993 and has grown to serve hundreds of thousands of members around the world. The company is the subject of our latest Culture Matters segment.
Let's talk about Seven Corners. First of all, a thumbnail on basically what they do.
Yeah, so started in 93, now 200 employees. They not only do they travel insurance, but they do travel medical, emergency evacuation, and they help people who are outbound to foreign countries as well as inbound get the protections they need when they're traveling and working internationally.
I'll talk in a minute about how that mission is really part of their culture. I mentioned the challenge. Started very entrepreneurial, small company in the early 90s, grown now to more than 200 employees. They realized at some point, hey, we've got to transition from that small startup into a company that's got some size.
Absolutely, and not only is it just 200 employees, it's a quarter of which are not even at the Carmel office, so they're dispersed around the country. And so what Jim and Justin, the co-founders, realized, hey, we're 20 plus years old, we're successful, we're winning, but we really want to take this to the next level. So they launched something that you mentioned called the Apollo program, named after the moon mission. They wanted to have a moonshot and go to the next level. And with the Apollo program, they really said, how do we do this differently? How do we scale this? How do we become a destination, something that's built to last, not just a good place to work?
And we're looking at some of the video there. It looks like that Apollo theme is kind of evident there.
Yeah, and in that video, that's actually in one of their multi-purpose rooms that's dedicated for employee interaction. Very collaborative workspace in general, but they have a driving simulator and a ping pong table and ways for people to connect and have fun while they're working.
Yeah, and it seems like when we talk about culture, every company, that space is very important to that culture, and that's the case here.
Yeah, space has a huge impact on culture. I don't think there's a Culture Matters segment we've had where we didn't mention space once.
Right. Mission, and you talked about that mission. Every company has a mission, but with Seven Corners, you say that mission's really part of who they are.
Yeah, and Nate talked about this to the person. They communicate it at every level that we are helping people in their greatest time of unexpected need. So imagine you're traveling in Africa, you just came back from a trip, you're traveling in Africa, and something happens medically that you didn't expect. You're in a foreign country without the normal connections you have. That's what Seven Corners does. They step in that moment of greatest need. And so even the IT guy who's reprogramming something that helps one person that nobody ever talks to, help the other person who's talking to the member, they all recognize what I'm doing is about that end purpose.
Yeah, you talk about the fun and unique things. Halloween is important at the company,
well,
right?
When your co-founder's birthday is on Halloween, you kind of punched up.
Yeah.
So they use that as an excuse to have fun. A lot of businesses dress up at Halloween, and because it's Justin's birthday, they go all out. And it's just a reflection of them having fun in a 24/7 service environment, high pressure, but they take time to have fun together.
Yeah, about 30 seconds left as we wrap up. Community engagement, being really community focused, oriented is part of the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. They've always been community focused from day one, but what they've started to do recently is incorporate that into their learning, leadership development. A good example is when their senior leadership team that was born out of the Apollo program went on a retreat. Instead of going to retreat and then dinner, it was retreat, carve out time, serve together and learn together.
Great stuff. Paul Ashley on Culture Matters. Seven Corners, great company in Carmel. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Gary.
Each week, a group of insiders offers perspective on the week's top stories. This week, our panel includes Beck Communications Group President Laura Beck, Bose Public Affairs Group Principal Roger Harvey, and Katz Horan Cunningham co-founding partner Norris Cunningham.
Off the top, and our top story this week on the show, the economic development numbers. The state had a big announcement this week. Norris announcing with a month or so to go, 2017 will be a record year, they say, for deals, jobs, and an average wage. Any takeaways from the announcement? Been a lot of high-profile announcements, Infosys and some other big companies. Any takeaways?
Well, a couple. First of all, I think just the sheer number of new jobs, right? Around 29,000 new jobs, and you add to that the fact that the average wage is substantially higher than the typical hourly wage or average hourly wage that we see here in Indiana. Both bode very, very well. I also find it interesting worth the split of some of those jobs, right? About 10,000 of them are manufacturing jobs, about another 7,000 in technology, which is exactly where we want to be, I think. So this bodes very well. It's a good year.
Yeah, on the mix, as Norris points out, manufacturing still drives the Indiana economy, but increasingly it's tech jobs, and it's also international jobs, about $1 billion worth of potential investment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're seeing quite a bit of trade missions that have been occurring, at least over the last year. The caution always is with economic development jobs and announcements like this they are still commitments. So at the end of the next year, we'll have to go back and see, did all of this come to fruition? I certainly hope that all these companies can live up to this, because if they can and if they can get it done, it's very good news for our state, especially in these sectors.
Yeah, and a lot of it obviously dependent on the economy locally, but nationally, and what's happening there. Roger, as you look at the numbers, the big numbers, again, as Laura points out, they are projections, they are commitments, and we'll see how it pans out over 3 to 5 years. But what as you look at Indiana's economic development performance and the attention they're getting outside of the state from various publications and others, seems to be a lot of fairly positive news in Indiana.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen this momentum building over the last couple of years. Certainly at the State House, you've seen policies that have been friendly for growth of business. And while they are commitments, I think it's important, if you look at some other states where when they comes to incentives, they give a lot up front in some of these other states. And in Indiana, that's not the case. So the performance is going to have to be there for them to be successful in getting those incentives. The other thing, just real quickly, I know the big numbers, everybody likes big numbers, and they are impressive. But to me, I think what's really nice about this is the diversity of the portfolio, if you will. When you look at small to mid-sized companies, I mean, the companies that have 50 people, 100 people, 150 people, you're seeing more and more of those. And I think that is a true testament to us, not just swinging for the fences on the big ones that get the headlines, but also working to grow those organic. A lot of them are spinoffs from other companies that have been successful here in the Midwest.
And those are the kinds of companies that are going to grow the economy around the country. Workforce is a big issue. The governor came out with his 2018 next level agenda, as he calls it, with a focus on workforce. I was interested to see a Toyota Mazda joint venture plant not going to Indiana, will be probably somewhere in the South, but I think a Toyota exec was quoted as saying one of the reasons why Indiana perhaps out of the mix. Questions about ability to have enough workers to fund a plant or to fill a plant like that. Is workforce could be the Achilles heel here in Indiana?
I don't know if I'd say it's the Achilles heel, but I think we have a lot of work to do. And I think when you look at the legislative agenda, that's a key part of it. But at the same time, we have to be continuing to work together with our institutions and starting right from grade school, too. Let's look at how we train people, starting from the very early ages in these careers that we know are coming down the path, and then really help people decide maybe college isn't right for you. Maybe getting some type of technical certification is a better way to go.
Yep, Norris, workforce, internet, connectivity, more nonstop flights. What's your takeaway from the agenda for next year?
So I focused a lot on the infrastructure piece. In particular, I liked that it included expanding access and affordability of broadband, right? I mean, because when we talk about workforce development, it does start very, very early. It starts in childhood. It starts in school. It starts with internet connectivity and allowing the kids to be able to do their homework online, right?
Exactly.
And so for the governor to include broadband as part of the infrastructure agenda, quite frankly, only makes good sense because, as I've said many times, it's a utility. The internet is a utility just like water or electricity, and we've got to have it.
Yep.
I think the one thing we are missing out, though, not to interrupt you, but the one thing that we are missing out on when you do look at that workforce and that economic development agenda is we're losing out on some of these clean energy jobs by not focusing on them in the coming session. And I don't know if it's because there's not the political will to do it, or maybe that's just low down on the priority list. But we are now starting to surpass, in terms of solar power, we are now surpassing jobs in solar as opposed to coal. And then we have such great potential, especially in renewable energy manufacturing components, and we're lagging behind others in the Midwest. So we've really got to capitalize on that because I'm afraid we're going to fall behind.
Very good. Advanced Manufacturing, Distribution, and Logistics, Connexus Indiana is really the group that spearheads that. Norris, I know you wanted to talk. You were interested in the new CEO of the organization, Mark Howell, a well-known name in the business community, COO at Angie's List. He'll be taking over Steve Dwyer, another big name. Important job.
Yeah, very important job. It's good to see them tap someone from Angie's List with the talent to be able to grow and expand what Connexus Indiana has been able to do. About 1 in 5 Hoosiers either make things or move things. Right, and so what Connexus brings in terms of the focus that they have on young people, for example, and again, workforce development being really, really critical. And I think that this is a way of being able to arrest that brain drain that we talk about all the time. Right?
Yeah. You talk about the evolving economy, the tech economy getting a lot of attention. Laura, we saw this week and this weekend Grow with Google, this national initiative put on by Google, investing $1 billion over 5 years, deciding to launch it here in Indianapolis, which I think a few years ago, I don't know that would ever have happened. Is this an indicator, another indicator that Indiana's really on the tech map?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. I was joking ahead of time, I'm going to go take some classes, go to some coding classes while they're in town.
Sure. Right.
But I mean, really, this is, I think, a key sign for us, and it's just as Nora said, we make things, we move things, and the information economy is really a key part for us here. So I think that with all of the pieces that we have, I think it's strong, and I know that's something you focus on quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the bottom line is we've been a test market for restaurants for years, naturally,
right?
Right. So why not for tech?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we saw Steve Case and the Rise of the Rest, that nationwide tour. Indianapolis on that as well. So it seems to be our perception around technology is changing. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Perception around football, maybe not so much. It's a tougher time now for the Colts, the Indianapolis Colts, struggling this season. Obviously, Andrew Luck, a lot of people expected this to happen, announced about a week ago he's out for the season. A lot of speculation and accusations out there about how the Colts handle that whole deal. Thoughts?
Well, look, there's always going to be people. I mean, certainly the people that are season ticket holders have a much different opinion probably than the person that just watches casually. I guess the bright spot of it is that we continue the way we are. We probably ought to be able to get a couple people for the offensive line with draft picks. But no, I mean, no doubt about it. It's I mean, we need Luck to be healthy. I mean, he hopefully is going to be here for a long time, and there's no sense throwing him out there now at this point in the season if he's not healthy.
I think, quite frankly, it strikes me that bringing him back in a shortened season when you still haven't fixed the problems that they have on the offensive line to begin with is a recipe for something worse happening down the road. Shutting him down now and hopefully being able to improve that roster by the time he comes back next year makes a lot more sense.
As the football mom, I hope my 10-year-old can fit into that jersey still when he comes back.
Good deal. Okay.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
Quarterback in training. Very good. Laura Beck, Roger Harvey, Norris Cunningham. Thanks very much, one and all.
That wraps up this week's edition of the Inside Indiana Business Podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.